In this segment, we will take the Tableau Superstore sample data and we will use it in Power Query and Power BI. This will help us to see how we did the same actions in Tableau and how we repeat those using the Power BI interface. The first thing that we need to do is ingest the data sources. To do that, we click on the Get Data button. We click on More. And then we can ingest data from a folder. Our data is stored in the Superstores files folder. Here we have the details of the 4 files contained in the folder, and we will combine and load the data. Power BI will connect to the files and then it will combine them. So here we see all of the columns and the data types are decided on the first 200 rows. So then we click on OK. The query is evaluated and the data will be returned to Power BI. Power BI is a model-based reporting mechanism. So the data is comprised of a model and the data is contained in the model structure. We can see the data in the right hand side. So we see our Orders South file here. So now we ingest the Orders Central CSV. We establish a connection to the file. Once the data is loaded to the model, we can then go back and get some more data. To do that, we press on the Get Data button. This time we're going to collect some CSV data. And we're going to collect data from the Orders West file. When we see the data, we can then load it into the Power BI model. We can see the data in the right hand side, so we have South, Central and West data. Now we'll ingest an East file data, which is an Excel file. So we click on the file name to select it, and then we can load the data. So now we have our data for South, Central, East and West. Then we can move towards fixing the dates. We want to create a date called order date, and we create it from the order month, year and day. Now we will take the opportunity to look at creating calculated columns in Power BI. Here we are in the query editor again. you can see that there is order month and order month number. Order month number has got a uniform format of 2 digits to represent each month. Order month, on the other hand, is a mix of 1 and 2 digits. We're going to take order day, and we're also going to make this format uniform by adding in an additional column. This will pad any of the 1-digit days with a 0, which will make sure that the day is always in a 2-digit format. We can also do the same with ship month number as well. Any of the columns ending in no for number, we know that that has been formatted so it is a 2-digit format. It makes it much neater when we're trying to deal with dates and visualizing those dates. In this last example, we have the same thing for day number. On the right hand side, you can see the steps that have been taken, and you can compare the 2 columns, which are highlighted here with yellow headers. Now we can use those in order to create a nicely formatted order date. This is a UK format, so we have day number, month number and order number. We created a calculated column which you can see at the top, and now we're going to change it so it's in a nice date format. So it's changed from text to a date format, and we can further refine that by using the dates time formatting that we see in Power BI. This results in a nicely formatted order date. You can see this at the right hand side. Now we can do the same thing for the ship date as well. We will add in the formatted day number, month number and the year. We are adding in forward slashes in order to make it easier to read. We can change the format how we like, so we had year, but now we're going to have the day number first, then the month, and then we will add in the year. Then we press return, and our calculated column has been created. We can then see them at the right hand side. Now we will change the discounts column that we see here highlighted. To do that, we will edit the query. Now we are in the Power Query editor. We are looking for the discounts column. When we click on it, we can see it is a text format. This is because it's a mix of numbers and the word none. So we want to take the word none and replace it with a 0. Then we can change it to a decimal format, using the facilities here in Power BI to change the date format. Just as a check, we can actually filter and have a look to see the options available to us. We can see that none has gone and we have a 0 instead. So now we have our discounts column, and we can change the format as we did with date. It's currently text, but we can change it to decimal number format. and we can see the data here. We can also change the format of its appearance, which we will change to a decimal number. Then we can save, close and apply the changes, and those changes will go into the Power BI model. There's also an undo and redo button, which we see at the top left hand side. And we can see all of our tables on the right hand side. Now we will make changes to the sales column. To do that, we're back in the Power Query editor, and we're going to split the sales column so that we separate the letters from the numbers. The letters actually represent the currency. Here shown as 3 letters USD, and then the value appears after that. As a double check, we can see it in the filter. We are going to split the column by the number of characters, so we can change it to number 3 here. We only want to split the column into 2 separate columns, so we split it once. If we wanted, we could change it to different columns. So now we're going to remove the currency column, we don't need it, and that leaves us with the column marked Sales Point 2. We're going to change the format so it's a decimal number now. And then we can rename the column as well. So now we have changed the format for the sales column, the discount column, and also the order and ship date columns as well. We can now close and apply our changes. Now we're going to change the column so that we can change the state. The state appears in a 2-letter format. So we see 2 letters here, AZ for Arizona, CA for California, and so on and so forth. We're going to rename those. So to do that, we choose Replace Values. We put in our value we want to change here, AZ, and then we replace it with Arizona. Then we click OK, and we see our step has been added to the right hand side, and we can also see the data has changed as well. Now, I'm not going to bore you with me changing the details for every single state, so I'm just going to transition on to the end result, and believe me, you'll thank me for it. It would just take too long for me to show you that, you'd be bored. And there's the end result. And all of my steps appear on the right hand side, so you can't believe I actually did them. So now we can close and apply our data changes, and those will be placed into the model. The data is refreshed, and then we can start to move on to the next step. Here we're going to rename some of the fields in order to make things more clear. It's also good practice to keep the field names consistent with one another, particularly when we are merging data, and it's very useful for creating the union later on. So we're going to take our product name column and we're going to change it simply to product. We do that by right-clicking on it, renaming it, and then pressing return. We can also change the name of our discounts column and change it to discounts. So again, we click on it, we right-click, we rename, then take the S off the end. This will come in useful when we start to create unions of the data. Now we're going to do the step of creating a union on the data. In Power BI terminology, this is known as appending, and you can see the button at the top right hand side here. We're going to append the data together for the South, Central, West and East tables. At the moment they are all separate. We're choosing the option to create 3 or more tables and add those to the South table. This will create a new table called Append 1. We can rename this if we like. Now we're going to look at how we join those tables together. So we have our table here, which is the returns table, and we're going to add it to the appends table, which is the output of the South, Central, West and East data that we joined in the last segment. So our returns data contains lots of data we don't actually need. It contains things such as the manufacturer and so on, which is not necessary. The purpose of this analysis is to understand better why customers make returns and who's doing the approving of the returns. So we only need these 4 columns. We need the order ID, the product ID, and then the return reason and any notes. You can see that the notes field is typical free text. It's messy and also contains the approver name. Ideally, we want to split out the notes and the approver name in 2 separate columns. So to do that, we can start to split this column out. So the first thing we're going to do is to trim unnecessary spaces. So we right click on it and we choose the option to trim. So now the data starts to look better. Now we want to split the column by delimiter. So this time we note that the approver is separated from the notes field with a dash. So we're going to use the dash in order to separate this column into 2 separate columns, one for notes and one for approver. So here we have the custom option to separate with a dash, and we're going to choose the option to separate it at the leftmost delimiter. So basically it will just split the data once and it will use the first dash that it sees. So when we do that, we have the notes field and we have the approver field. We can see nulls. We can see the approver field is still quite messy, but the notes field contains nulls and free text. So now we can work with the approver field in order to make it more smart and easier to read. We also want to make it uniform in case we decide to run reports on the approvers and their activity. So to do that, we're going to transform the data and we can capitalize each word. But the first thing we do is remove unnecessary spaces using the trim command again. So here we are going to replace values, and we'll use this step in order to clean some of the punctuation. So if we find a dot, we're going to replace it with nothing. This won't add any new spaces, so the dot will simply disappear. Here we're going to do the same thing with the forward slashes. Now we can see our data more clearly. There's lots of nulls as we expect. We can also check for spelling mistakes. So we can capitalize each word so it starts to look better. So now we want to trim the column again, remove any unnecessary steps. We want to replace values. We can still see our data isn't very clean, so Williams is spelled incorrectly. So let's change that. We can sort the data so if we can see if there's any odd items in there. So we've found an odd spelling of Williams, so we're going to change that. When we right click on the cell, it immediately populates the value to find with the one that we want. Then we can replace it with the item that we actually want. We can see E. Williams is spelled incorrectly down the bottom, so we can change that too. So here we've changed another wrong spelling of E. Williams, and now our data looks much better. This will be better for reporting purposes because it means we have the same value referring to the same thing, and the data will be aggregated correctly. To summarise, in this section, we spent time cleaning and changing the data so that it makes more sense to the people who are trying to understand it. The idea is you are alleviating the cognitive load you're asking people to do when they look at reports. We're making it easy for people, and actually making things easy for other people can be quite difficult. Now we are going to join the columns together. We're actually going to join the tables together. We're going to join the returns table with the table we appended earlier. We've renamed our appended data to total orders so it's clearer what it's referring to. To create a way of joining the data, we're going to duplicate some of the columns. We'll duplicate order ID and product ID, and basically we create columns of them and then we merge them together. So this will give us a new ID which refers to each column. Merging these two columns together will give us a new column, and we will use that new column in order to join the two tables together. Each of the tables will have a new separate column which merges the order ID and the product ID. And we will use these new columns in each of the tables in order to join those two tables together. So here we duplicate the order ID, and then we will also duplicate the product ID as well. So here we have the duplicates of our order ID and our product ID, and then all we need to do is merge them together. So to do that, we right click and select merge columns, and this will become the new key for the total orders column. We will use the new merged column for total orders and returns to join the two tables together. This will allow us to do some analyses of actually who is returning solutions and products back to the organisation and why they're doing it. So it's interesting because we've been working on this for about half an hour, and we've gone from some data to being able to answer some really interesting business questions. So how do we join the tables? Let's take a quick look at how that works. In case you're not clear on what joins actually look like, here is a quick breather that will help you to understand how to do that. These joins are available in Power BI, they're also available in Tableau. So what we do is we decide actually we want to use the left outer join to join the orders with the return reasons. So to join the tables together, we're going to add in a new relationship in the Power BI model. So to do that, we click on Manage Relationships, and we're going to join total orders with the returns data. Now Power BI has taken a guess at what relationships should be created. So we are creating the relationship dependent on the new merged columns, and that's been identified here. We can change it if we like, but we can see here we're using many-to-one relationship, and we're using a single direction as well. Then we click on OK, and then we close, and our relationship is in place. Now what we need to do is move over to Power BI, the canvas, and we will play around with this data, and we'll see how far we can actually change the data within 5 minutes in order to produce some interesting charts and graphs. So now we're going to visualize the data in Power BI. So the objective here is not to create an amazing Power BI data visualization. The intention is really to show you how quickly we can get to some interesting insights. Now, we don't have time within a 5-minute time slot to really show the power of Power BI and the data visualizations it can produce. I just want to give you a flavour for how we do it. If you want to learn more, head over to powerbi.com, download it for free and try it yourself. All I'm going to do here is create something very simple, very fast, just to see how different it is actually from creating visualizations that you might see in Tableau, for example. So here we have a very small title which asks a business question. What are my return reasons? You can see I've created a small table here which actually indicates the return reasons. We can see you collect the data you want by clicking and ticking from the data on the right hand side. So you can see our previous tables for East, West and Central, but we can also see the new table as well that you created for total orders by appending and cleaning the data to produce a new table. You can also see returns as well, which was joined together with the union total orders table. So here all I've done is create a very simple table, and I'm doing that in order to check the veracity of the data. So I'm going to add in a new filter. I do that simply by return reason, and then I'm just going to resize it so it looks a good size. So I can just double check in here that my filter actually works. You'll note that I haven't done any coding here, it's all drag and drop. The clever work was done in the model, and this means that you are actually making things as simple as possible for people to use. In Call Now Spammer Netflix book, she talks about opening the mussels for people so that they can actually find oysters inside. And I think that's such a nice way of looking at it. Basically, when you're visualizing the data, you're giving people the pearls and the output because you've done the hard work for them. Basically, you've opened all of the oysters to find the pearl. So here we have our return reasons. We can filter those. Now we can start to think about creating very small visualizations just to make it more clear. If you want to access our model, we can go to the Modelling tab at the top. We can also format the data, and we can do drill-throughs as well. So I've enabled the drill-through option here. Now I'm going to click on this and we can start to create some nice visualizations. I'm a fan of checking the veracity of the data first before I go in and start to visualize, and that's just all I'm doing here. So all I've done is create a very small bar chart here, horizontal bar chart. I just want to double check that it's still responding to the filter, and these are the results I'm expecting to see. If I want to format it, I can make it more interesting. I can change the selection controls to show a select all option, and I can turn on an option to single select options. Here I want to select more than one thing. So I can start to see some interesting things about why people are returning the data. I can actually drill down as well, but before we do that, let's make it bigger so we can see it better. So I can drill down into the city and the country that are where you see the most returns taking place, and I can drill back up again. Then I can return it back to where I want it to be, and I have a tooltip to give me precise details. To summarise in this visualization, we created filters, we created tables, created a vertical, we created a horizontal bar chart, and we managed to see some insights from the data, all within 5 minutes. And the reason that it's so easy to click and tick in the Power BI interface is because the model has been created beforehand. So I hope you enjoyed the look at Power BI and how you can use it with Power Query in order to create visualizations. Note that you can actually change your data in Power Query in Excel. You can do the same cleaning steps. You could also change and save your data in Excel and use that in order to create visualizations in Power BI and also in Tableau. So you can actually use Power BI, Tableau and Excel all together, and the root of it is really Power Query, which is really which is really helping you to analyze your data by doing really important steps in your data. We have a saying in data warehousing, garbage in, garbage out. You can use Power Query in order to really help clean your data and get it into a good shape so that whatever tool you decide to use for your visualization, you have got a great starting point. When we're thinking about Tableau and Power BI, people often ask which one should I choose, which one is better. But I tend to see them as paintbrushes, which allow me to create a wonderful palette of my data using the right paintbrush or the right tool at the right time. So Power Query really allows you to make Tableau and Power BI better. It's a great way of making sure your data is in a great shape so that your visualizations are more likely to be correct. As I said before, Tableau is not a reporting tool, but it is a great tool if you want to use it for data visualization. Power BI really allows you to shape and model the data. It also allows you to create custom visualizations in the data and to connect and use open source visualizations such as R in your Power BI workbook. So to summarize, they both have great features. And if you have access to both of them, why not use them both? So I think the question, which one should I use, Tableau or Power BI, is often the wrong one. They are not mutually exclusive in terms of what they do. They're also both great tools. So I really recommend that if you are a Tableau user, have a think about Power Query and how powerful it can make your data and how clean it can make it. I'd also think about using Tableau Prep, but I personally would use that for very simple data visualizations and deep cleaning data. Power Query is much more advanced. It can do much more powerful things. Now that's not to criticise Tableau Prep, it's only been out a few months. But I think Tableau Prep and Power Query are both aimed at different audiences. Tableau Prep is for your quick and dirty way of cleaning data, but Power Query is a much more advanced way of making sure that your data is clean, and it's really aimed at anything from really simple changes to much more complex ones. But all of these tools put these opportunities in the hands of the business user. So if I were you, I'd go and get started, and best of luck. I am Jennifer Stirrup, and you can go and find me over at my blog, jenstirrup.com. I look forward to your comments. Thank you.